Thank you so much for coming to the Parent Resource Symposium. I will introduce our mayor, Bill Miranda, to give the opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for attending this very important event. I'm Mayor Bill Miranda, and I want to thank you for joining us tonight to the Parents Resource Symposium titled Social Media, the New Gateway Drug. The past school year has been extremely difficult for all parents, teachers, and especially for our youth. Students had to adjust to a new learning style, modify their interactions with peers, pause participation in leisurely activities, and in many cases, just adjust to life at home. Although our youth have been extremely resilient and creative in how they dealt with this difficult predicament, distance learning has also exposed them to the challenges that come with increased internet usage. Overexposure to social media and the anonymity these sites provide, as with any technology, social media can have negative impact on vulnerable individuals. While adolescents benefit from social media use by digitally learning from others, meeting new friends, creatively expressing themselves, and more, they are also at risk of being exposed to large amount of offensive and dangerous content. We're here today to learn how we can assist our youth in becoming more aware of the negative effects social media can have, and to inform you, parents, how to monitor your children's screen time and exposure. Social media can be psychologically addictive, and our teams are using it as a way to cope with the natural life stressors that have been exacerbated by isolation and social distancing due to the pandemic. As you will hear from our speakers tonight, social media offers a perfect conduit for criminals to reach our children. Drugs are being accessed and distributed through the means that are difficult to track and in plain view of most vulnerable. Stay with us to find out how social media usage has led to youth being influenced and pressured to experiment with illicit substance. Also learn about the psychological implications too much exposure to social media has on our youth. Listen to the experts as they share ways in which you can help your children learn to use social media sites in a responsible manner, along with the importance of staying connected and best practices for you and your children. Thank you again, and let me introduce and thank our moderator for the evening, Captain Justin Diaz, for his commitment and efforts to protect our families here in Santa Clarita. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor Miranda. I appreciate it. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening. My name is Captain Justin Diaz from Santa Clarita Sheriff Station. Grateful to be here tonight for our Parent Resource Symposium. And everybody knows it's a very interesting topic tonight, near and dear to probably everybody's hearts, and that is social media, the new gateway drug. And you know, when you hear the word social media, what comes to mind? Probably Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, you name it, right? WhatsApp, or Snapchat, you know, the possibilities are endless, right? We know that there's all these out here now, and there's probably many more to come. And we know that certainly social media is not a passing fad, right? It's here to stay. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And these options that our kids have, and even as adults, these options that we have are going to certainly expand over time. So when you couple this increase with the distance learning and the virtual education that we're doing a lot in schools, for many children and teens, it's easy to see how this can become an addiction, right? And an attachment to their everyday lives. So this is why we're coming together tonight to address the dangers with our Santa Clarita youth and how they can become intertwined with, the dangers that our youth can become intertwined with as a result of social media. So over the next hour, we're going to discuss why and how this is happening. We're going to share solutions and other resources for better monitoring online presence. of our youth and hopefully put them on a safer path, right? And their daily social media interactions. So as a resident, the parent in the community, I do understand all too well that the stresses of our youth that are experiencing, and I think everybody in this room, whether a youth or a parent, I think you would agree with that. And certainly this pandemic has further exacerbated that, right? So you can imagine dealing with the uncertainty of the pandemic, altered social norms, new school settings, and all of that while growing up as a youth. This is a lot, certainly, for children and teens to take in, and it's a lot for them to deal with. And as we all know, it's a very impressionable time in their lives. So imagine all of these pressures, all of these changes that we've had in the last year and a half, and then combine that with this impressionable time, and right? It makes for a very dangerous time. So these mitigating factors also leave them susceptible to the wrong online influences, and that's what gets scary. These bad influences can lead them down rabbit holes of drugs, alcohol, harmful online content, crime, and even poor mental health. And I think all of us have seen some of those in some aspect, right, over the last year and a half. And as parents and guardians, we know it's in our hearts. We know that it's our job to protect our kids and our youth and their friends. So now that many children and teens are spending more and more time on the internet, they become more versed in social media, and each of us here in this room need to be aware of that and more alert of that. I hope that tonight each one in this room leaves with better knowledge of the dangers of social media and certainly more confidence in keeping your child and their friends away from these online harms. So thank you to all of our attendees here tonight, and certainly all of our virtual attendees. Thank you for taking the time to join us, and all of our vendors who participated in the resource fair just prior to the event next door. So tonight, I'm joined by some local experts from various fields, and they're going to provide a lot of insight on social media and the effect of our youth. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists here. So I'm going to start off to my left here. I have Detective Jeff Kasich, and he is from our J team at Santa Clarita. That's our juvenile team at Santa Clarita Sheriff Station. Sitting next to him is Robbie Robinson. He's an intervention specialist, also assigned to our J team at Santa Clarita. And they're going to be discussing a very important, very interesting part of this whole equation, and that's social media and crime. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Next, Monica Dedia and Amanda Ellis of the Child and Family Center. Thank you, ladies, for being here. They're going to be discussing another important topic, and that's mental health and substance abuse, right? So another piece of this puzzle that's affecting our youth and gateway to social media. And then lastly, down at the end, Michelle Krantz, principal of La Mesa Junior High. And Michelle's going to be discussing the impact of social media on education. So our third important piece of this whole puzzle. So thank you, Michelle, for being here. Later in the program, we're going to have 3 youth panelists. And I'm very excited about this because I think that as parents and guardians and adults, it's going to be very interesting to hear what the youth have to say, because sometimes we don't quite understand it, right? And I think for any youth in the room or any youth online, I think that they're going to connect with our 3 panelists here. So Josh Kim, I see over there, you raise your hand. Thank you for being here. We'll call you up in a little bit. Natalie Krantz, Natalie, and Edgar Padilla. So thank you guys for being here. We'll call you guys up a little bit towards the end, but thank you. So basically, we're going to begin tonight's symposium with our panel of experts, and they're going to be answering a set of questions regarding social media and in their respective fields. If you have any questions or you'd like to ask the panelists anything during our Q&A portion, please text the phone number shown on the screen up here. So that's 661-670-0687. So if you have any questions, please text the questions to that number, and we're going to directly address those questions at the end. So our first question for our panelists here. Panelist, what are some of the implications of social media use by youth, and specifically, what do parents and guardians need to know about their children's use of social media? So Detective Kasich, I'll start with you.
Parents need to know that social media is used all the time in dangerous activities. We see it all the time where kids are buying narcotics off of social media through Snapchat, through WhatsApp, through Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger. It's not just text messaging anymore. It's anything that you could send a message to. That's how it's being bought and sold. I find advertisements all the time on all the various different platforms of social media throughout the internet across the board.
Yes, everything that my partner is saying, and I see it a lot more, and it's just becoming a normal thing now where everybody's getting on social media to give their opinions, to just get involved with everything. And we all know that there are certain people that get on there that their intentions are not all good. So the parents need to focus and understand what's going on.
Great, thank you. Monica?
Yeah, I think what parents and caregivers should know is how to use social media so that when you are introducing it to your children, you also know what they are doing online, how to use it, and what are some of the implications. I'm going to use Snapchat as an example. There is a location service on there. When you go into Snapchat, someone can see where you're located right away. So as a parent, kind of knowing some of the settings of these various platforms that our youth are using, and knowing that it is now becoming a form of communication and engagement and connection. So just with any other skill, when we teach our kids how to drive, we go through that process with them together. So when we're joining social media, what are the safety standards? What are the risks? What are the benefits? How do you recognize toxicity? How do you recognize things that are unsafe? And how to respond to those?
I think also with some of our younger youth here in Santa Clarita, having that added pressure from some of these social media challenges and things like that, sometimes they may not make the best decision. And that's where we as parents need to have open communication with them and be able to have them come speak to us, because they do have more availability and accessibility to substances online. And we need to be able to talk to them about that openly.
How many of us would take a trip to New York City into Times Square with our children and say, oh, it's 7:30, we're gonna go catch Hamilton. You kids go have a good time. Anybody here willing to leave their kid in Times Square while you go enjoy Hamilton? Nobody? I didn't think so. But we do that when we hand them these smartphones and we give them access to the internet and to social media. They have the exact same, they might even be safer in Times Square, to be honest with you. It is the World Wide Web. And the thing I would like to remind all of us as parents, and I'm a mom too, is that we need to consider that that's not the place that they've earned privacy. The truth is, I always say to my kids, if the FBI can see it, so can I. And I think we sometimes believe that students have this right, our children have this right to privacy in social media, when in fact we're missing out on all these wonderful opportunities to shape them and to guide them in how to navigate this world and the World Wide Web. So being a part, as you said, of their experience on social media by understanding it, but also having the conversations about who you want your child to be and building that basis of character so that when they get on social media, and they will eventually, they have tools and they have a strong foundation of who they are so that they can navigate it knowing what you expect of them.
Okay, well, thank you, Michelle. Okay, so we have a next question. So this is an interesting one. Social media has been known to have a positive aspects, such as raising awareness by important issues. I think we can all agree on that, right? Creating communities of inclusion and connecting loved ones. Okay, so to our panel, what are some ways in which social media positively impacts the areas of crime, education, and mental health? And Detective Kasich, we'll start with you.
As long as I speak for our station when I say that we use it to talk about crime trends that are going on, various things. If we get good arrests, things of that nature, we can blast it out there on social media and better educate parents, better educate the community on various crime trends that are going on, various things to look for throughout the community. It helps us look for bad guys that we're looking for, if an armed robbery has been occurred or something along those lines. Whatever the case may be, we use it all the time to elicit the public's help in trying to capture people. As far as mental health goes, I've been on numerous calls where somebody's reached out for help. They're having suicidal thoughts, things of that nature, and they put out just a blank social media request. And next thing you know, we're getting a call from a relative in New York thinking that their parent or their relative needs help nearby us. So we do what we can, and we go to that house, and we've helped numerous people through that avenue.
You can go ahead.
In regards to mental health, I mean, there's definitely, with anything, there's going to be pros and cons. With social media, again, it provides an opportunity to express oneself in different means. So if we look at TikTok, a lot can come up when we talk about TikTok, but there's some positivity, right? There's some fun challenges that go on there. There's ways to express. We talk about all these life hacks. So there's that opportunity to be expressive and creative and fun. There's all of that. And then as well, in terms of help seeking, when someone is going through something, then they're struggling through something, it's a vulnerable experience. And it's difficult to actually say those words out loud. So I run the social media for the Be the Difference SCV. And we talk a lot about suicide prevention of all different ages. And in just posting, how many folks struggle with depression or anxiety, how that may impact suicidal ideation or self-harm, putting out that education that's reliable. People have reached out saying, I'm struggling with this, what can I do? And has allowed for outlets for folks who don't feel safe saying it to someone either within their close family or their close network, or there's stigma around help-seeking behavior, right? We know that mental health is often very much stigmatized. It provides a platform and a safe space to say, hey, what's next? I need help. And we're able to connect those folks, those youth, whoever's reaching out, to some services that make sense for them. So again, pros and cons with everything, but the positivity is that you have access to people 24/7.
In regards to substance use treatment and teens seeking help, we at the Child and Family Center have been able to have a lot of our treatment groups, individual counseling sessions online. And that has, really helped us through this pandemic to still be able to provide services, treatment services, for substance use, depression, anxiety, and we've still been able to continue those things. It hasn't stopped. So no matter what platform we use, we're still able to provide those treatment services. And also, I think for our youth being able to connect with their peers, because when we were on lockdown, there was a lot of loneliness and isolation, and so for them to be able to join a Discord call with their friends or to play an online game, just to be able to talk to them and know that they still have their peers out there that might be struggling as well, I think it definitely helped to connect them.
I know that in the schools, we try to model positive social media use by using it to celebrate the wonderful achievements that students have, by using it as a way to communicate upcoming events. The students have different school-based accounts, like the ASBs have their own accounts, and there they are able to connect with students and connect students with school and even get input on the activities that they're doing. So for sure, there is a lot of positive. I myself am on TikTok as @Principal Krantz, and I actually joined it, one, to meet kids where they were at over the pandemic where we couldn't connect, to make them laugh. And while I don't encourage kids to be on social media in junior high, they're already there. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to show them a positive way to present yourself on social media. And I think nothing's all bad. Nothing's all bad, and everything in moderation.
Okay, thank you, panelists. Those are all great points. Now, switching gears, we want to talk about some of the negative impacts, right? So you guys brought up some of the positive impacts, and certainly we all know as a group that there are certainly quite a few positive impacts, especially, to Amanda's point, getting us through, coronavirus, being stuck at home. So switching gears, on the flip side, what are some negative impacts of social media on the safety of youth in the community? And I'll throw it to Detective Kasich to start.
Well, I, like the principal, am also on social media. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, but I'm not going to give out my name because I like to keep a little anonymity with it. Because I want the kids out there to know that, one, we're out there looking, watching all that stuff, but they don't know who we are, anything like that. I see it all the time. I can't stress enough how much I see marijuana, mushrooms, heroin, fentanyl, ecstasy, all that's for sale everywhere. On anything you guys think, it's for sale. There's code words, there's everything. We very much look at all of it, and we do what we can to combat it, but it's hard. And the best thing that parents can do is to better educate themselves. And like the principal said, there's no privacy with this. You should be looking through all their messages, all their posts, follow them on all their social media platforms. The dark web is in the forefront now. I could find dope. I could find narcotics on any platform you guys want me to find narcotics on. I could find it for sale, and I could probably have it purchased in the next hour or so. It's seriously that easy, to a point where I'll speak of a personal story that I dealt with, where a 12-year-old from one of our local junior highs out here bought a marijuana-laced cookie off of somebody, ended up overdosing on it, had to get rushed to the hospital with seizures, things of that nature. Mom had no idea this even happened. And this person had no problem selling to this little girl. So this is a personal story that I've actually dealt with. I've talked to the daughter. She's fine now. I've talked to the mom. I've dealt with all this stuff. It happens all the time out here. And it's just, please look out for your kids. They don't have privacy for their protection. Okay?
Just like my partner said, not only are there a lot of drugs being sold on it, but there's violence and other things that are being perpetrated by that. People are being, as they say, called out. And so there are all kinds of things that are going on along with the drug transactions that are going on. The parents need to be aware. There's a saying, my people perish due to lack of knowledge. So the more knowledge you have, the better that you can become in understanding this problem. First, it starts as an issue when you overlook it, and if you're not involved with your kids, then it becomes a problem.
So on the mental health side, anytime we have an unhealthy relationship with something, there's going to be some symptoms or some reactions to that. So with social media, there's actually there's research going on in developing a mental health disorder called social media anxiety disorder. And the things we really want to look for when we're looking at someone's relationship with social media is, is there an obsession or this need or constant really drawing that I have to be on here and share everything that's going on with my life, and part of my self-esteem, my self-worth is connected to this device or to this platform. So some of the things we may see are increased anxiety, so increased worries, racing thoughts, panic. I posted this and I'm not getting the reaction I thought I was gonna get. What does that mean about my self-worth? We can see depressive type symptoms, depressed mood, irritability, isolation, sleep problems, and depressive symptoms show often quite differently in our youth. We may see it as more like attitude or acting out, but it is going to be more of that. There's something really going on mood-wise, right? So we may see it as attitude, but it could be that cry for help of I need to talk to someone about this. Self-esteem issues, risk for substance use to cope with the anxiousness, the depression, or other things that may be going on. So that it might actually draw to substance use in coping with a mental health disorder, and particularly with vulnerable populations. So those who have been exposed to traumatic events, those who are vulnerable in terms of our LGBTQ plus youth, our BIPOC youth, those who have been exposed to community violence, been through the system, all of those groups are going to have a higher vulnerability for having an unhealthy relationship with social media. So being able to kind of recognize those signs anytime you see any rapid shift of behavior, whether it be internal or external, those are the times you really want to have a conversation with your child.
I also think that the amount of cyberbullying and trolling and things of that nature has increased, where people are behind a screen and it's a lot more easy for them to just, attack somebody over the internet as opposed to in person. And then a lot of the teens can be influenced to, film these fights, fight at school, participate in these TikTok challenges just to try to fit in. And I think when it becomes about being pressured into participating in these unhealthy behaviors, that's also when we have to look at our teens, social media and see what exactly is on there.
The digital footprint is forever, and it may mean the difference between them getting into certain colleges of their choice, having jobs in the future, and I think we have a responsibility to our children to be on top of that. And yes, it definitely affects the vulnerable populations, but it also impacts just the regular kid from the regular family when they get repeated access to content that is not what you would want them to see on a regular basis in large doses. Kids also have two personas. They have the parent persona, the one that you'd be so proud of, and that's the Instagram account that you are friends on. That's the one that you follow. And then they have the other Instagram account where their online persona, it's almost like a duality of personality. They speak differently, they post differently, they interact with their peers differently. So just following your child on their Instagram account isn't enough. You need to be in that phone, pushing on that bottom right where all their different accounts will show up, and you can see, oh, so there is the Natalie Krantz account, and then the Natalie Krantz spams account. Or they don't even use their name, so they're kind of unsearchable. So lots of ways for them to kind of sneak around and have that other persona that also someday might affect that digital footprint that could impact a future goal or career. And I don't think Natalie has a spam account, but I could be wrong, because you never know.
We'll find out when Natalie comes up here.
We
We'll-
will,
yeah.
and I'll be sitting right there.
Okay, so this is great insight by our panelists. So here's another interesting question. Detective Kasich just briefly touched upon it. So for any of the panelists, so the parents out here want to know, what are some of the code words used in social media, right? So now you're checking Natalie's other account, her other Instagram account, her online account, not the one that you follow, and you're seeing, hey, this seems like a different person, or they're talking exactly what you said, they're talking different. So what are some code words? What should a parent look for? What do you do? Do you go to Urban Dictionary and look up everything you can find? Or what are some common code words where you might suspect cyberbullying, you might suspect drug use, some sort of illegal activity? And I'll start with Detective Kasich and then anybody else who's got something to add for that.
I agree. Urban Dictionary is definitely a great place to start. The internet's a great resource. Code words for any of the narcotics that are out there are on Urban Dictionary, are on the internet anywhere. I'm in the field of narcotics. This is what me and my team do on a daily basis. And I'm constantly learning and trying to evolve and trying to come up, figure out what the newest words are. Because like I said earlier, I search every platform there is. Part of my daily routine is going on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and Snapchat and TikTok and all these accounts that I follow. There's a good chance I follow some kids in here too because of just trying to get associated and get followers and see what's going on in the high schools out here and all that stuff. I work daily with the school resource officers, so I talk to them daily trying to figure out what they're hearing on school campuses, what's going on with them. They come in our office every morning and before they go out to the schools that you guys are all at. And it's the way that I try to stay connected with everybody out here to make the youth safe. I'm not spying on the kids or anything. I'm just trying to make sure that the narcotics are staying out of our schools, our city the best way that we can. So, the code words are out there. Look them up, and you will definitely see it. Yes. Yeah, Urban Dictionary is a great resource. You type in heroin, and it'll give you every nickname that's out there for heroin. Some are used, some are not. Sometimes it's an East Coast thing, sometimes it's a West Coast thing. Like it could be very geographical in that nature as well. So you may not know that, but it's very common. Like I said, I find narcotics for sale all the time on Craigslist. Is the easiest one for me to find it on. I type in code words all the time, and afterwards we could, if you guys see me walking around, we could talk, and I could show you guys some stuff because it's all over.
Just having the knowledge is very important. We can't look at this like it's a textbook, or you can pick a book up, like you say. It evolves every day. Just today, when Detective Kasich and I were working on something, we were noticing things, listen to certain phrases and languages, people who are there associating with. These are very important. Constant association breeds simulation. So if these kids are out there around drugs, well, I don't take drugs. After a while, they start using the language, and then all of a sudden, they're caught in and pulled in. So it's very, very important to keep abreast of what's going on out here. Every day, there's something new coming up.
I don't have all the information on code words. I'm not into the know on that, but this is actually something that Mr. Robbins shared with me when we met a couple months ago. It's not about knowing all the answers, but knowing how to get the resources, and it's about the relationship. So, really keeping an ear to the ground with your relationship with your child. Have these conversations. If you see, you're next to them and you see, like, what is that? Like, just ask, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, what's going on here? And just having that open conversation and not coming from a place of being punitive, but having a collaborative conversation of, if someone were to, approach you on social media and say this, how would you deal with it? How would you react to that? Who would you go to just for support? So having kind of like creating little mini safety plans, and with these various different scenarios that can come up. And then, knowing the resources to inform yourself about what are some of the words being used. And because it is dynamic, it changes all the time.
I run the substance use groups for teens at the Child and Family Center. And when when I first started working with a specific group, it was like they were talking in code. And I'm like, what are you guys saying? Like, break it down for me. And they were more than happy to educate me on their lingo, on what they were talking about. And so for me also as a parent, presenting on this tonight, I had an open conversation with my son, about what do you think are the positives of social media? What do you think are the negatives of it? What kinds of things have you experienced at school? And he's only 11, but I feel like the more, that we learn about it and the more that we're able to talk to them about it, they will trust us a little more in being able to talk about some of the things that are going on there. But sometimes when you just ask them, they are willing to talk about those things.
Emojis are code words. You'd be surprised at what the eggplant stands for. It's a penis. And so kids are exchanging sexual innuendo using just emojis. But I think even before even knowing the code words, I think we have to say as parents that if we hear ourselves saying, not my kid wouldn't do that. We're a good family. We're a religious family. We are involved with our kids. I will tell you as a principal in this valley for, I don't even know how long I've been a principal. I've been in education here for 23 years. Good kids from good families do bad things. I have seen everything from the student with straight Fs get involved with social media, drugs, bullying, experiencing sex before they should, all the way to the ASB straight A kid doing all of those same things. And every time I hear a parent say, well, my child doesn't lie to me, my child would never. If you hear those words coming out of your mouth, stop for a second and say, wait a second. Because it's not an indictment on our parenting, because good kids from good families do bad things. So we got to accept that first, because if we don't accept that, we're not going to look for the code words, right? We have to accept that all of our kids are vulnerable to this, no matter where they live and where they come from, how much money we make or how much money we don't make, what religion we are or what religion we aren't. So I do think that we need to own that our kids aren't perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect kid or a perfect parent.
Thank you, Michelle. Great point. So here's a very interesting question, and I think this really sums up a lot of this. So a survey in 2018, okay, so a few years ago, right, showed that 95% of teens ages 13 to 17 had access to a smartphone. Does anybody think in 2021 that might be 100%? Possibly, right? 95 to 100%. Do you think, would everybody in here agree that a teen 13 to 17 years old's got access to a smartphone, right? Whether it's theirs, their friends when they go to a sleepover, or it's yours, right? When you leave yours around, they want to play on your phone. I think so we can all agree on that. Okay, so with that said, and here's the big question I think everybody in this room wants to know. With that said, how can parents and guardians help their teens safely navigate social media content, right? So how do you do it? What do you check? What do you tell them? Do we give them rules? Do we give them time frames? Hey, you can only go on social media a certain amount of time. Do you tell them what social media they can go on? What's the right age? These are tough questions with probably not perfect answers. So Detective Kasich, I'll let you take a stab at that because it's a very, very difficult question.
I think, like we've talked about before, just being involved. No privacy, not so much intrusive, but involved. Looking, engaging with them, talking to them about various things that they're doing. But looking at one, who's following them, and two, who they're following is a good place to start. That may be some indicators on things that they're looking at, things that they're interested in. It's not just their posts and things of that nature. It's who they are following is good indicators of things that they're interested in. Like I've said earlier, don't be afraid to go in direct messages, Facebook chat, Facebook Messenger, all the different messenger apps, and know how those apps work, know how all the various social media platforms work and operate, and how communication is done for each of them. Because it's very important. Because if you don't know, they could easily hide it and easily fool you guys on where everything is hidden. It's definitely worth looking into it all.
I think we've all answered that. The thing that I would just like to say real brief, don't be afraid of your kids. Don't be afraid of them. I mean, you're their parents. You love them. You're not their friends right now, but don't be afraid to stand up for your kids and find out what they're doing. Because if you don't, they will do things and then they'll get so involved, it'll be out of your hands. And the last thing, when I heard the principal speaking about is denial. We're not talking about the river in Egypt. We're talking about what's going on in these kids' lives. So don't be in denial about your kids. Oh, this is not happening. They are involved. Get to know what's going on. They may get upset at you, so what? Rather that they get upset at you if you're finding out the information, as opposed to them going and getting into trouble, and then you and your husband and everybody in the family is now, just disoriented. Don't be afraid to be involved with your kids.
So I say the first thing, too, is also looking at ourselves, looking at yourself as a parent or caregiver. You're modeling the behavior that your children are going to be seeing and consuming. So if you're often using your phone, let's say at dinner time all throughout the day, that's modeling something to your kids. So first, looking at you and your relationship with your device, with your social media. In regards to what's an appropriate age, chronological age and developmental age are not always the same. So you may have someone who's 14, but developmentally or emotionally, they're a little younger, and perhaps they are not at a place where they are safely able to use social media. So that's going to vary based off of, your family, your child, and where everything is. There's a couple practical things when you introduce social media. My niece is 14, and she just got her first phone, and her parents literally wrote up a 2-page contract, and she had to sign it. And they went through, this is how to safely use this device. This is how you can safely use applications, what it's appropriate for you. And here are the risks. Here are some things that you may encounter and how to address these. And then also the consequences of misusing. So if you're using social media for things that are inappropriate, and we know kids make mistakes because that's how kids learn. We make mistakes, that's how we learn. So we don't want to say, if you make a mistake, that's all or nothing. How will you learn from this mistake? How will you grow from this, and what will you learn? And consequences aren't necessarily bad things. Failures are not bad things. It gives us opportunities to learn and grow. So contracting and saying, these are the expectations, these are the consequences, setting up good device hygiene of, at around 7 o'clock, there's a charging station, all devices go here at this time. Knowing that too much device use after a certain time is going to impact sleep hygiene, it's going to impact quality of sleep, it's going to impact anxiety and all those things. So really setting those boundaries and modeling them for your youth. And then also, if you are seeing red flags, point them out right away. Have a conversation. Hey, I'm noticing this, or hey, I saw you on your phone last night. What's going on? Tell me what's going on. And kind of nipping in the bud right away. And if you're starting to see any rapid change of behavior, isolation, dissociation from friend groups, changes in academic achievement, having that conversation and being open to perhaps speaking to a mental health professional if you're seeing that there's increased anxiety, depressive features or whatnot, having a conversation. It doesn't, there's a I'm talking way too much, but there's a stigma, I think, of if you were to reach out and talk to a therapist, that means you're crazy. It means you're human. It means that sometimes we go through some difficult times, and it's nice to have a third party, a non-judgmental person to talk to.
And I think it's never too late to start talking to your teen about the dangers of social media or what might be going on. Even if they already have a device and they already have their social media accounts, it's never too late to have a conversation with them and to open that doorway of communication. And the more that we do that, the more that they're going to use that and come to us when it really matters. And so I think just never, don't give up on them. Start talking to them today, even if you never have talked to them about social media, and just keep talking to them about it.
In regards to the age, most apps, social media apps, have a minimum age of 13, some even higher. So if your child isn't 13 and you're allowing them to have social media, you've already begun their relationship with the internet in a lie. They have to put in a fake birthday in order to get that social media app and running. So if you've allowed that, you've basically just given them permission to be dishonest. And that's part of the whole problem with social media, right? It's not necessarily the most honest platform. I mean, how many of us post the bad hair, right? We post when we look great. We don't post the big fight with our spouse. We post the very happy, beautiful family where everyone's looking neat and clean. Social media is kind of the big lie in a lot of ways, right? We look at it and we go, oh, that family looks so happy and look how nice their things are. And we don't see the real truth. So don't start the relationship with a lie. And I would say use that age as you're out. Hey, the age is 13. But so the age is 13. Then you have to think of that developmental age. If you want your child to be a confident, productive person, right? Do you want to develop that self-esteem with your child, or do you want the internet to develop it? Because they're looking at those likes and they're looking at the comments from their friends, and that begins to develop their self-esteem. And for some, that becomes a reliance on that self-esteem, that if they don't get the right comments, they don't feel like they're good enough. So developmental and age, very different things. I appreciate you saying that.
Well, excellent points on everybody's part. Monica, your comments about the contract, I've never thought of that, but that could be a lucrative business. We'll have to talk afterwards. The cell phone contract with the parents. So, okay, so, certainly in my position, any of our panelists, anybody that works for the city, any of our numerous nonprofits out here, certainly the mayor, I think from all of our positions, we know that this Santa Clarita, we are very fortunate that we've got an abundance of resources for anything that somebody would need, whether it's alcohol, drugs, social media, anything, mental health, anything you can imagine, we have these resources out here. And we know that, and in our positions, we know that, but probably a lot of you don't know that, or you don't know where to find it, or how to get it, or how to pay for it. Is it free? Is it low cost, no cost? Is it expensive? Do I need insurance? Things like that. So a big question that always comes up are, what are the resources for parents? So we're hearing all this stuff. We're hearing what to do, not to do. We're hearing about Monica's business that she's going to go and do with cell phone contracts and all that good stuff. So to our panelists, what resources are available? We've got a parent who thinks they may have a problem, or maybe they want to avoid a problem. Their child's maybe 9 or 10 or 11 years old. Where do they go? Who do they turn to? Who can help a parent who needs some help? And I'll start with Detective Kasich, if you have any insight on that.
I'm actually just going to defer to Robbie Robinson on this. He's my intervention specialist, and he has way more contacts, way more knowledge, way more insight on all this than I do. So I don't even want to begin to talk about that compared to what he knows.
Don't worry, I won't be long. I'm going to be very real with you. There are a lot of resources. The mayor has done it. It's been good. A lot of the resources. I've been working for a while, working with some of the people up here on the stage. Do not be overwhelmed with any of these problems. There are people here, the resources that we have to help you, but you have to own up to it. You have to be committed to it. So what if your child gets upset at you? So what? Let him be upset or her be upset. Rather her be upset than her be out on the street. But there are resources through the sheriffs, through the city, that will help you. I'm a resource, an intervention specialist. So when I talk with you, after this is over, I'll give you a card, and you can talk to me, email me, or call me. I'm willing to talk with you and work with you and give you some avenues of resources. But do not say the city of Santa Clarita, well, they don't try to help me. There are numerous resources by the mayor here and by the sheriff's department that are being offered. So when you say, well, my kid's this and my kid's that, you know what? There's something out here that can help you. We were dealing today, Detective Kasich and myself, with a parent. The mother was just totally overwhelmed. And we sat and we listened, we gave advice, but then we also gave them resources. Now it's up to the kid and the parent to follow through. Don't be afraid of follow through. Don't be afraid of asking questions. And when the help is given to you, don't fight with us. Don't fight with us. We're trying to help you. So whatever you have, we have something for that.
I think what's great about the city as well is that you may not have the resource available to you, but you have support systems that may be able to connect you to that resource. If you're interfacing with the teacher, the counselor at the school, they have connections to our programs at Child and Family Center. They can refer your child over to us for mental health support, substance use treatment, and domestic violence services. If you're religious and you're working with your church, oftentimes the folks at the church may have connections of these other resources available. So it's not always just knowing who to go to or where it can be, but your support systems often will have a way to connect you to what you need. The City of Santa Clarita website has a great resource base. BeTheDifferenceSCV.com. .com also has a wonderful resource list. But start speaking to those around you, and most likely you'll be able to get connected to services around that you're looking for.
And of course, the schools are here to help. Reach out to your child's counselor, to your child's administration. We can hook you up with the resources that are particular to your circumstances. And there are digital resources as well as people resources. So don't be afraid to reach out. No one's judging you. I think that's the hardest part, is to say I need help because we think someone's going to judge us. No one's judging. We just want to help.
I wanted to say this really briefly to you. Nothing major. I had a dear friend pass. I was grieving for a while. I was really grieving. Coming to the station, talking to some of the deputies, it helped. Does that make sense to you? So we all have something that we have to work on. I was really grieving. I'm talking about sitting down and just breaking down and just crying and then I'd walk out and I would start crying. So that was something that I had to deal with, but I knew who to go to. There were some of the deputies I could talk to, and just being in there, talking to the sergeant, it helped me out. So don't be ashamed. We're not judging you. We're here to help you. And like she said, I mean, there are support groups. I'm very staunch on that, and I want you to know you're not alone out here. We're not judging you. We don't think you're bad parents, but we just want to help you, and we want to give you some help so that when you go forward, you and your son and your daughter can just move forward in a good way. Does that make sense to you? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. And we'll talk about it briefly at the end, but we will make sure that everybody's contact information, all our panelists' contact information are put up on the city's site or the Defy site. So there won't be any issues if you need to contact Robbie Robinson or Detective Kasich. So we've just got a few more questions, and these are actually our text questions where people text into this number here. And we're going to actually, they're going to be to a specific panel member. So to Detective Kasich, how can kids buy narcotics online, like the example of a cookie? And I think probably better stated is what should the parents be looking out for? And using the example of the female that had the cookie with laced with marijuana who had the subsequent seizures. What should parents be looking for? I mean, maybe code words, maybe certain emojis, what can they look for? How are kids doing this is the question.
That's a pretty hard question to answer because there's so much out there. We go deep back in our sheriff's Instagram. Me and my team conducted an operation in a garage where a guy had a full-on marijuana shop inside of his garage, acrylic displays. I think we got at least $100,000 worth of product out of his garage, and it was a garage and a condo. And anybody would just come in and buy from him. He would take money through Zelle and WhatsApp and Venmo and all that stuff. Venmo is a social media site as well. Believe it or not, now that I've actually touched on that, I could send a small amount of money to somebody and put a message on there and keep it private, and you will never know. And they could send me that same small amount of money back with another message. So anything is possible with this. In the case of this girl, she was with a friend and they were hanging out at a park, and she had this guy meet her at a park to sell her the cookie. She had the money on her and gave it to him, and he handed her the cookie and walked away. Now this was an actual sealed cookie that us as adults can go to in any marijuana shop in the state of California over 21 years old and buy ourselves. So it wasn't like this was something that he made at home and was selling to kids. This was something that he bought in bulk and was selling them to people. So me and her talked in private, and she told me that this was her first time ever trying it. I believe her because she was very open and honest with me. So it was her first time. And one of the things that I would recommend too is it's not just enough education to say drugs are bad. We got to go all the way down to how bad drugs are, how bad even something as marijuana is. We need to know how much a body can handle versus how much is in a cookie. How many milligrams of THC can a body handle versus how many milligrams are in this cookie. How much, tolerance is based on that as well. It's not just about saying drugs are bad, because if they're going to experiment with it, they need to understand the dangers of it as far as your body can only handle this much. So if you do decide to do it, and I'm not around, if you take a whole cookie, there's a chance you may die. Things all the way down to that.
Okay, thank you. Another question for Detective Kasich. This is a great question. How do we find things that are hidden, like on a cell phone? So ultimately the question is, if my kids have a hidden app or an app that they're not supposed to have, maybe it's social media, but maybe it's hidden by another app. So maybe you look at their home screen and it shows, a ruler app, or maybe it shows, a painting app or some, random nondescript app that if, as a parent, you wouldn't even, think twice of. But upon clicking that app and putting in a password, maybe it brings up an app they're not supposed to have. So difficult question to answer, but certainly probably a question that's on a lot of parents' minds. So Detective Kasich, is there a list of apps? Can somebody, or to any of our panelists, is there a list where parents can go on and find these secret apps on the internet and maybe search your child's phone to find those?
I think the best way on this, do the research online yourself. Look up hidden apps. You'll get a list of it. I would tend to think that if a kid's going to do it, they're not suspecting that you're going to be looking for it, so they're going to probably take the first 1, 2, or 3 apps that come up on some of these lists right away. So those would be a great place to at least start to look. But it's everywhere, and like the principal said, multiple different accounts. Just because they always have their main account doesn't mean that they have multiple different accounts. I have multiple different accounts. I switch between them all the time, so it happens.
I'd say you give your child a phone, you go to the Genius Bar, and you learn how to set the parental controls. And you set the parental controls that they can't download an app without your permission. Therefore, you would know every single app that is coming onto their phone. And so that's one way is not to be looking after the fact, but be proactive and know what they're downloading onto their phone. So there's ways to set up the parental things so they can't go on certain sites, that they can't download apps without your permission. So go to the Genius Bar and get that appointment, because they will show you exactly how to use those parental controls.
Great point. So our next question for Michelle. I'm sorry, Amanda, did you have something further? Okay. So what are social media trends within schools? And I guess that's kind of a broad question, but how are they harmful? So social media trends at school, what's going on?
Well, right now, devious licks. It's a TikTok trend where students vandalize the school, particularly the bathrooms, but it could be anything. Post on social media, and then they get likes and comments. Some kids are taking it pretty far. One is they're taking liquid Kool-Aid and making it look like a bloody mess. Some of the students are so addicted to the likes. 2 sweet little girls, they took down the soap dispenser so that they could take the picture, and then they put the soap dispenser back. Seems harmless enough, but it's sending the message that why would you even want to represent yourself that way? Why would you even want that to be anywhere? So that's the major trend right now. Honestly, next month it'll be something different, but they're looking at the different challenges. TikTok took down the hashtag devious licks, and people are like, oh, see, they took it down. No, they just come up with a different word or different combination of words to be able to continue doing that.
Excellent point. Yeah, that's been all over the news the last couple of weeks, right? National media, network media, and certainly our local media. So
Every school has been affected across the country.
great, thank you. So question for Monica, and again, these are all the text message questions that are coming in up to this number up on the screen. So to Monica, what are some effective strategies of limiting phone and social media use without isolating or negatively impacting your child's positive friendships at school? Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it also speaks to the pros and cons of these devices and social media, right? So it's becoming a very primary mode of communication for our youth. So again, the first thing is modeling that we want to set limits with the use. Oftentimes I think we focus on those time limits, but again, what is more damaging or harmful is the relationship with the device. So, setting a precedent of this is how we can use our devices to promote positive communication, relationships, and reduce isolation, especially during the pandemic when there is less contact. But then here are the red flags of when you're overusing. When you feel that you have to constantly check your, Instagram every 5 minutes. If you are becoming very connected to how folks are reacting to you. So if I don't hit this threshold of responses or likes, what does that mean about me? So if it begins to impact their sense of self, sense of their self-esteem, then that's when we really have to reevaluate that relationship, right? And constantly having those conversations. When the the less that we say, we talk about often, if we talk about substance use, then kids are going to use. If we talk about suicide, kids are going to kill themselves. That's not the case. What's worse is what we don't say. So having the conversation, no matter how difficult or awkward it may be, is more important than just saying, oh, I'm too afraid to approach that conversation and let that fear hold on. So have the conversations openly and honestly, and also, again, the hygiene tools of setting those strict limitations and following through with those, being consistent with those expectations, are just ways to really model healthy use of devices and social media.
Thank you, Monica. Excellent points. Amanda, a question for you. How do we get our kids to acknowledge the negative impact that drugs have on their development and their future?
Well, I think it does definitely start with open communication at a younger age. And sometimes if we need help talking to our kids or our teens about this, that would be a great way to bring in, a therapist or a counselor. Even at the Child and Family Center, we have run a group in the past called Just the Facts, where we are talking to teens about some of the harms of different substances, how they affect their body. And this Just the Facts group, can be before we think a teen has a problem. And that's just about having open communication, So I think the more that we're talking to them about it and being accessible to our kids when they need us, sometimes they won't just come right out and ask for help, right? Sometimes they ask in other ways. And we need to be able to know, having that open and honest communication with them, that maybe they are asking for help in their own way, in their own language.
Thank you, Amanda. So we've got another question. I think this would be best suited for Mike Frankie. I think you're still back there? There you are. So Mike is with City of Santa Clarita DFYinSCV. And Mike, this question I think would be best for you. Do you do these symposiums at schools for the kids? So, of course, we've got the symposium for the parents here, and we've done one once a year. And, we do it in person. We live stream it. Last year, we live streamed it, of course. Do you do these in the schools? And if not, what's the plan in the future?
So we actually have a program called DFYinSCV. It is a club that's held on every campus in every elementary school, junior high, and high school. When it's in elementary school, it's more of a assembly type based program where we go into the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade and give them assemblies. Once they go into the 7th, 8th grade, and then to high school, we have a club format. We offer them leadership opportunities, community service opportunities, and it's more of a way for them to impact their schools and kind of have the buy-in, like we were talking about, Ms. Kranz. A lot of kids are kind of disrespecting their schools. And so when we have the kids that become leaders in our club, it kind of shows them to have more impact, a positive impact on their school as well. So it is a club that's on every junior high and high school campus. If you want information about that, you can go to DFYinSCV.com. It has all of our contact information, all of our program information. We do stuff throughout the school year. We are there every month on every campus. So you will see us, or your students will see us on campus. If that's something they want to become a part of, our information, our membership forms are on the website as well. And it is a super fun club to be a part of. We try and make it as interactive for the kids as possible. So yes, that is a club that's already been established on campus.
Okay, thank you, Mike. That's great information. I think a lot of us in the room didn't know of all those programs that DFYinSCV is doing, so that's great information. Thank you. So with that, that's it for our panelist of adults. I certainly want to thank Detective Kasich, Robbie, Monica, Amanda, and Michelle for your responses. You guys, it's such a diverse panel, from completely different walks of life. And the funny thing is that, listening to you guys talk, it all sounds like you got together and figured out all your answers. It's even though you're, from completely different backgrounds, completely different organizations, I think you guys all have the same goal in mind, and that's protecting our children. So with that said, we thank you for coming up. If everybody would give them a hand. And now we're going to invite our special youth panelist up, and that's going to be Josh, Natalie, and Edgar. Come on up, guys. So this is going to be very unique to our parents and our students, not only in the room, but online virtually. to get a perspective from our youth. You know, a lot of times us as parents, we talk and it's very difficult to connect with the youth, but this is going to be a very, very unique perspective here. Okay, so to our youth panelists, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate you and certainly look forward to your insight and what you guys have to say in your perspective. It's very important to us, and I think it's going to make a big difference with everybody, not only here in person, but certainly online. So our first question, and if each one of you could take a stab at each one of these questions. So for each one of you, please share with us some of your experiences on social media, good, bad, or indifferent. Just some quick experiences on social media.
For me, I started in 8th grade. I'm sorry, can you tell me the question again?
Sure. Just share with us some of your experiences on social media, and that could be a good experience, a negative experience, how you feel looking back on it, you know, anything that you would like to express.
For my experiences, is good because I could talk to my friends, you know, even in quarantine, when all the pandemic, I always talk to my friends on there to go like play some games, and that's all. Another way is like, there's some people like friends, my own friends, I follow them, they put out like motivation to motivation students and stuff like that. There's one bad way for one of my experiences that I didn't really experience, but one of my friends have, that there's, that some people will message the students and it's just random and it pops out on social media like Instagram, most likely Instagram. And they'll tell them everything to see where you live and stuff like that. But first they will be talking about saying hi and stuff like that, but they should be blocking that and ignore it and delete it. And sometimes if the students actually do talk to them, they will hack their device. And that's a bad thing of social media. My experience.
Great, thank you, Edgar. And Natalie, the same question for you. Can you share some of your experiences on social media, either good or bad?
Yeah, so I got social media when I was a freshman in high school. I probably go on social media a little more than I should. I'd say I spend most of my time on TikTok. I don't really like posting things. It gives me a lot of anxiety thinking about it, which I think is a really important thing when talking about social media, and thinking about why that probably gives me anxiety seems kind of weird, because there's people place such an importance on what you're posting and people looking at what you're posting, and I think that can be a really stressful thing for students, and even sometimes for me. You know, you see your friends and they're posting cool pictures of them at the beach or going to the mall or doing fun things, and you're like, oh, why am I not doing those things? Why is my life not the same? Why are they doing all the things? And that can be really stressful, or can cause some self-esteem issues. But I think social media can also be a really positive thing, and I found it's really positive, especially during the pandemic, when since we're away from our friends and we're not in school, we're not seeing the same people, having those connections and being able to talk to your friends through various apps and things like that, I think can be a really positive thing, as long as people are being safe.
Thank you for that insight, Natalie. And Josh, go ahead, we'll throw it to you.
I first got my phone in 7th grade of junior high, and then I downloaded social media for the first time in 8th grade. And I'm the same way as Natalie. I don't really post things on my account. I like to explore or like browse content that other people post. But for the most part, I think to me, social media is like a way to connect me with my friends and like update me on what they're doing. But like a bad experience I've had of social media is that it's like, it just wastes so much time in my life. My parents have helped me out by like putting restrictions like screen time to like prevent me from staring at my phone all day. and that's really helped me out. And I also agree with Natalie that like as long as you're not bullying someone or trolling people on the internet, social media can be a fun way to keep in touch with people.
Excellent, thank you. So Edgar, we'll throw our second question to you. How has social media impacted your mental health?
It has impacted my mental health, not a lot, but a couple of my friends, which they're not really friends, I'm not friends with them anymore, they have been telling me that I've been doing stuff wrong, you should do this, like stuff like that, which it's kind of really bad for me, which I stopped that. Another thing that students should be aware for, like what I was saying, that their friends tell them what they're wrong about you, and they tell you what you wear and what you're wearing wrong, and then they tell you that if you're really happy and you're too happy and stuff like that, they just don't like that, and then I think that's all I'm gonna say.
Great, thank you. And Natalie, I'll throw it to you. How has social media impacted your mental health?
I think social media has definitely had an impact on my mental health. I think when you're seeing people on social media, a lot of what people are posting is not real. It's not what they're little snapshots from their life. They're pictures that are edited. They're things like that aren't real. I mean, I think diet culture is such a big thing on social media. Seeing so many influencers and people around you looking certain ways can really impact your mental health and can really impact your self-esteem. So, I mean, I know personally I've struggled with seeing people and being like, wow, why don't I look like that? Or why don't I do those things? Why don't I dress that way? Why don't I have that life? And that can be a really negative thing on social media. But I think if you have remind yourself, and I think it's really important for students with social media that that's not what real life looks like. That's not everything on those people's lives. That girl you're looking on social media who has the perfect body or the perfect whatever, like that's not always what it really is. And it might have took her a million different pictures and a million different apps to Photoshop it to look that way. So I think that's such an important thing to think about when you're using social media. And especially with me, with my mental health, I've really had to think about that sometimes.
Okay, great points. Josh, your thoughts. How has it affected you and your mental health?
Social media has had an impact on my mental health as well. I don't really post stuff, so like I don't get hurtful comments or stuff like that. But one way it has impacted me is just like seeing people having fun, like as Natalie said, at the beach, or like going to an amusement park when I'm stuck at home like studying. So that can like make me kind of feel jealous, I guess. But I'd say that like it's not my personal experience, but hearing from other people, they are sometimes too focused on statistics, like how many likes or how many comments. I mean, I think that's fine as long as it doesn't like make you feel bad if you don't get a certain number of likes or comments on your post.
Thank you. So Edgar, our next question, what are some of the dangers or safety concerns of social media that you've become aware of, either directly or indirectly? So dangers and safety concerns, stuff you see out there, stuff that you've personally experienced.
I haven't really experienced a lot, but I know some of my friends have been experiencing. Like the trends, what they were talking about, what's happening at school, those are bad trends. There's a couple good trends like dancing, those are a bunch of good trends, but some of them can be bad, but that's just my experience. I haven't really experienced a lot.
I haven't had a bunch of like negative experiences on social media. I mean, I've got the occasional text from 50-year-old men asking me to be their sugar baby and stuff like that. And it's like, but most of the time I just block them and don't stay away from that stuff. But I don't really get a ton of stuff like that. That's probably the most.
I also had a similar experience to Natalie, except it's the reverse from like an old woman. It might just be like a bot or a scam, but I just ignore those. I don't really care about those. But as the adult panel was saying earlier, like a danger from these internet trends can be like the devious lick, or from previous years, like the Tide Pod challenge. that can actually lead to really negative health consequences. So I think we should be a bit careful about those.
Great, thank you. Those are all great points. So Edgar, what do you think adults can do to make using social media a healthy or safer experience? So your parents, your guardians, your adult friends, what can they do to make it safer for you? Or maybe what has somebody done to make it safer for you?
For my advice, parents should just be checking on their child's device probably every 2 weeks or every month, and talk to them and looking at their phone. Both of them sitting there next to each other. There's another thing on the app, like Apple and stuff like that. They have restrictions about time limiting and giving them time on social media. Also, they can also look what are they doing on their phone and like social media, and they tell you what they're seeing and what they're saying to their friends and stuff like that.
I think the most important thing, and the adult panel kind of talked about this earlier, is having a relationship with your kid, I think, is going to be the most important. I have a really great relationship with both of my parents, and I think that's made a really big impact on how I use social media and what I post on social media. And I think just having that relationship is going to be the most important thing, because there's a million different ways to, if you're just limiting the screen time, or you're just limiting what apps they can have, and there's not that relationship, there's a bajillion different ways we can hide apps. The iOS 15 update, or whatever the newest one is, you can hide what your home screen looks like. So you can have even a completely different phone for yourself versus your parents. And I think there's a million different ways to hide stuff like that. So I think having that relationship with your kid is going to be the most important thing, and having conversations and making sure that there is that relationship so they can do the responsible thing on social media.
In my opinion, like at least for procrastination and like spending too much time on your phone, restrictive like things like screen time can be very useful. I have screen time on my phone and it limits my hour usage of social media, and I find that helpful for me. Like sometimes I can get distracted and I'm on my phone for a bit, but then the notification pops up that I have like 5 minutes left, and then I know I need to turn it off. In terms of like the actual inappropriate or like dangerous stuff on the internet, establishing like a good connection with your children can be a good thing if they're open and honest to you. No like secret accounts or stuff like that. That can make it a healthier and safer experience.
Great, thank you. So what I'd like you guys to do is connect with your peers, right? The teens that might be in the room, or certainly the teens watching, our live stream. And the question is, and where I'd like you to connect with them, what do you want other teens to be mindful of? So your peers, what do you want them to be mindful of when they're accessing or they're on social media? If you could speak to, all your peers, what is of all your, social media experience, what have you taken away from it? And what advice do you want to give to those peers? And Edgar, I'll let you start. And you can certainly defer to Natalie if you'd like.
My advice to all the teens and all the teenagers out there, for me, it's just be careful what people say to you, or what other mystery people just text you randomly. Be careful and just block those. Don't tell lies either on the iPhone or Samsung, whatever device you have. And just be mindful and be careful out there with all the apps, and yeah.
Great, thank you. Natalie, go ahead.
The main thing I would say is just be a good human. Be nice to other people. Treat people the way you want other people to be treated. Don't comment mean things on someone's post. If you're on TikTok and you see a video you don't like, you don't need to leave a hate comment. Just scroll. You can hit dislike. You can hit don't show me this again. You don't need to send hate and make someone feel bad. And I think just be a good human. And obviously there's unsafe things happening on social media, but I think
do your best to be safe and do your best to be a good person. And just remember that you're amazing and you don't need validation from other people. Someone giving you 500 likes doesn't make you great, and people aren't going to remember the fact that you got when you pass away way off in the future. People aren't going to remember, oh, remember that one time when she was in 7th grade and she got 500 likes. No one cares. Like, they're not going to remember that. They're going to remember that you were a nice person. They're going to remember that you were a good person, and that's really the most important thing. So live your life, be happy, do what you want, and be a good human, and that's really the most important thing is the most important thing. Yeah.
I would like to say that I think people shouldn't live their lives driven by likes and the number of comments they get. As Natalie said, you don't need validation from your fellow peers. If you believe in yourself and like if you think what you're doing is right, then that's good enough. And if there's hateful people who are like trying to just make you feel down, you just ignore them. Constructive criticism can be useful at times, but if they're just saying that to like make you feel bad, then it's not worth listening to them. And also like the people who try to get likes on their accounts, they are most easily influenced by internet trends that can be negative, like the devious slick. So just don't live your life seeking likes, and you should just focus on yourself and try to be the best person that you can be.
Excellent, thank you. So we've got 3 last questions, and they came in on our text line. So the first one is for Josh. Josh, does social media distract you from your schoolwork?
If I'm being honest, I would have to say yes. Even with the screen time, I sometimes use it to the max, which is not ideal. I'm taking a lot of AP classes, and I shouldn't be spending that much time on social media. So I will definitely try to work on that in the future.
Well, that's good. I'm sure your father, who's filming this, would appreciate that. So Josh, if this isn't too personal of a question, what is your screen time limit? And is that per day or per week? How does that work? Educate the parents in here that don't understand that.
So for me, the screen time limit is 1 hour and 30 minutes per day, and that's for Instagram and Snapchat combined. My parents give me like a slightly bit more time because I have to run like school club accounts on Instagram. But like I don't use the full 1 hour and 30 minutes on school club accounts. So the time that I use on my personal account, just like browsing random like memes or funny content, I could definitely reduce that time.
I'm sure your dad would appreciate that. Okay, so well, that's going to segue right into this question for Edgar. And Edgar, how often are you on social media each day? Not only how often, but I don't know if you have a screen time limit, but how many hours, minutes, all that good stuff.
For me, I'm pretty much on social media every day. My screen time is probably like 8 hours a day. But sometimes I take it off. I put it away because I got to do my homework and stuff like that. And coming back to school too, I have to put it away because over quarantine I was pretty much on it, and it just distracted my planned time like each day what I was gonna do, and it's not really that fun when you're on social media because it just ruins your time.
Well, that's an honest assessment. Thank you. Natalie, so this is our very last question for our youth panelists, and I think it's safe to say that your mom is not only deeply involved in this community, but seems certainly deeply involved in your life. And we thank you for that. We need more parents and teachers such as yourself, so thank you for that. So Natalie, the question is, what rules do your parents, and we'll put it on your mom here, although your father's not here right now, but your mom's front and center. Oh, he is here. Oh, okay. Well, although your mom was front and center, what rules do your parents set for your social media usage? So again, do you have a screen time limit? Is it on the honor system? Do they rip the phone out of your hand? How does that work?
So I don't have a screen time limit on my phone. I definitely am on my phone way more than I should be. Definitely not an hour and a half. No. But I think my parents, I have a really great relationship with my parents, as I said, and they think they trust me to know that I'm going to get my schoolwork done. I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm not going to be completely spending all of my time on social media. But I don't really have, I guess more on the honor system. My parents check my phone constantly. My mom always says, like, it's not my phone. I don't pay for it. So it's her phone. She can do it. She can look through everything. She knows about all the accounts I have and all of my social media. She looks through it a lot. She follows me on all of my social media. So like in terms of rules, we don't really have any specific ones, but like they definitely are involved in my social media and we have conversations about social media a lot and about my presence on social media and all of that stuff.
Excellent, thank you. Well, family culture. It sounds like it. It sounds like it, and that's a great thing. I think that's certainly what we need more of. I'm sure we can all agree on that. Well, I know it took a lot of courage to come up here and speak in front of this large group, and certainly all the people online. I'm sure there's thousands of people online. I want to thank you and applaud you for giving us an honest assessment and kind of educating us adults on what happens with social media in the youth world, because a lot of us are out of touch with that. So I thank you for being part of our Parent Resource Symposium, and please give them a hand. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, just a couple more things. This will conclude tonight's event. And of course, thank you for attending our 2021 Parent Resource Symposium, Social Media, the next or the new gateway drug. And please consider all you've heard tonight and share and discuss these things with family, with your friends, with your children, and help us, prevent the negative aspects of social media amongst our youth. And for more engaging parent workshops and positive resources for students, please to visit DFYinSCV.com. That's DFYinSCV.com. Certainly on Defy's website, we'll put up our information to our J team, which is our juvenile team, which includes our intervention specialists and all the resources that the Sheriff's Department has. And beyond that, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to encourage everybody to continue this talk. Don't just leave it at the door. This is something that we should be talking about every day, all day, every day, and it's never going to go away, right? So it's going to be a part of our children's lives as they become adults and they become grandparents, and then certainly the preceding generations. So beyond that, I want to thank you for being here and wish everybody a safe night. Thank you.